The sun was setting when I heard the front door slide open. V slogged inside and kicked out of her shoes, heaving a sigh of relief. She seemed more worn out than usual, though it was hard to be sure since I hadn't seen her in days. Days. Had it really been that long? It felt like a lifetime ago. V peeled off her jacket and tossed it on the counter. "Hey," she muttered. "Hey." I nervously watched from the couch as she rummaged through the fridge. It had been a day since my last meal, and while my body needed something, the thought of food made me queasy. V sighed again and closed the fridge. She looked at me and something flashed behind her eyes. She knew. Sure, I'd changed into a comfy long sleeve to cover my wrists and had spent much of the afternoon brushing my teeth to get that taste out of my mouth. I'd even run a comb through my hair to get the tangles out and make myself presentable for V. This would already be a hard conversation, and I didn't want her seeing me in disarray. It was an odd ceremony in hindsight, and one that had all been for nothing. She knew. "I'm so sorry." Why was V apologizing to me? I should have been the one telling her how sorry I was for viewing her as weak, apologizing for what I'd done. After all, she wasn't the one who couldn't stop herself from enjoying it. I nodded and the muscles in my jaw tightened. As good as it felt to hear those words, and damn, I needed to hear them more than I realized. I didn't like the way she was looking at me, like I was some pathetic victim. Where would I start? "I know," I replied in a low voice. V shook her head. She drew closer to me and I cringed away as though it were a reflex. What if she tried to touch me? Was I that fucked up? "No, you don't." I curled up as V knelt next to me. The pain suddenly rose to the surface and I knew I would break down into tears as soon as I had to confront it. She placed a reassuring hand on my leg and I felt a small swell of pride that I managed to keep myself from jerking away, but I couldn't bring myself to look at her. "I should have told you I was taking beauties." "What?" My abuelo had been a good man, and I sorely missed him. But we'd had our share of screaming matches, and his nickname he'd coined for me would be forever stuck in my memory. A blockhead. It was an antiquated term, befitting someone of his advanced age. I'd first heard it spoken a few months after we'd fled Laguna Bend and moved into the same apartment I lived in now. Some argument over not having a door anymore and the sheet dividing my room from the rest of the apartment not giving me the privacy I deserved. That had gone nowhere. When I reached my teenage years, I descended into a nasty rebellious streak. Nothing was off limits. Parties, alcohol, drugs, sex. Sometimes I would come home late, though it wasn't unusual for me to disappear for days at a time. Regardless, he'd be in my face the moment I stepped foot back inside. His lectures varied, though strangely enough he always mentioned me catching the wrong end of a bullet like my mother. And they always finished an argument by calling me by my nickname. And he'd been right all along. I was a blockhead. Tears spilled down her cheeks even as my own remained dry. Where I thought I'd seen pity just a moment earlier, I now saw guilt. "I'm sorry, Judy." V suddenly reached out and pulled me into an awkward hug. I remained frozen, hoping she wouldn't notice my arms were trembling almost as much as her own. "I'm so fucked up." You're not fucked up," I said uncertainly. "Yes, I am," V sobbed. "You were right about me. I'm a fucking addict, god damn it, and I'm gonna fall apart. Jesus Christ, how did this happen to me?" I should have been furious at her. I'd been kidnapped, drugged, and gang raped, and had dragged my ass halfway across the city, and she hadn't even noticed. And yet, I felt a wave of relief crash over me as I seized upon the opportunity presented to me. She needed me to be strong for her. I found the strength to wrap my arms around V, noticing she was the only one shaking now. "You're not gonna fall apart, V. You got me here to hold you together." "I can't. I'm scared shitless of going to sleep without him. I can't do it. They're just dreams. You know they're not real." "Yeah." V pulled away and wiped her eyes. "But what they've done to me sure as hell is." Who the fuck am I kidding? My dreams didn't do this shit to me. I did.
What are you doing? Tell her. This isn't the kind of shit you sweep under the rug. She deserves to know.
But I ignored the voice screaming in my head. I wasn't sweeping anything away. This was a choice. I was choosing not to break the woman I loved when she was pleading with me to hold her together. She might have bigger muscles and could always outrun me, but she was shockingly fragile underneath. I rose from the couch and knelt next to her, wincing at the friction between my legs. V, look at me. V wiped more tears away and did as I said. What? You need to stop this. It was such a simple truth, yet it seemed to hit V like a ton of bricks. After all the yelling and arguing, it had only taken 4 words for her to finally get it. I know, V acknowledged. These things are fucking me up. I mean, just look at what happened. What do you mean? I quickly asked. The studio, Judy. You could have gotten really badly hurt, even raped or killed, and all I gave a shit about was how much trouble it caused me, how much it was going to cost. Eddie's. Fuck. She'd buried her head in her hands and hadn't seen me flinch at the mention of the word. This was exactly what I wanted, for the fog surrounding her to finally lift so she could see the danger she was in. It had just been my luck that it finally happened today of all days. V, you've been there for me when I needed you to be. Sure, it would be great if things were good between us all the time, but that's just not how things are. I'm not sure they're like that with anyone. Maybe. I just didn't think it was gonna be this hard, Judy. No, neither did I. Silence hung in the air, neither of us knowing what to say next. Nearly 1,000 days of love, laughter, and arguing had somehow coalesced around this single moment. The words, I was raped, lingered in the back of my mind but were steadily fading away as I focused on V. Do you remember Laguna Bend? V asked. How could I forget? I snorted, grateful for the change of topic. You didn't know what the fuck you were doing, swinging your arms and legs all over the place. Hey, V chuckled. I'd never gone diving before. I was smiling. God, it felt so good to smile again and feel that strange pain in my cheeks. If something as simple as a pleasant memory could bring me so much joy, I might just be okay. Please, I knew you were checking out my ass. Well, you got me there. My visual sensors were definitely getting stemmed. I laughed. Another small victory. Stringing enough of these wins together would be a challenge, but V suddenly lunged forward and kissed me. My lips instinctively curled back. Sure, I'd scrubbed my mouth out with enough toothpaste to kill every microbe, yet that bitter taste lingered. And I couldn't help but think that in some perverse way, she was being violated too. But I moved my mouth the same way I'd learned to when I was 12 years old, returning her kiss.
What the hell are you doing, Cindy? Oh, come on. I know you like girls. Don't lie to me, Judy. Yeah, I guess, but still. You're older than me, and I didn't say you could kiss me. Didn't say I couldn't either. But you liked it, didn't you? I don't know. Come on, Judy. I'm not that much older than you. Only got my license a couple weeks ago. Here, take another puff. It'll help clear your head. What? I can't. My fucking head's already through the clouds. Just one more. Here, I'll do one too. There. See? Fine. Give me the fucking thing.
When V pulled her lips away with a strange look on her face, I was certain she was on to me. But it turned out to be my paranoia had gotten the best of me once again. I'm sorry I tried to change the subject. I just had to do that. You're right, Jude. I know I gotta stop if I'm ever gonna earn back your trust. I trust you, V. I just don't want to see you get hurt. I know. She looked at me with hopeful eyes, and I knew what she would ask next. Will you help me? The last bit of doubt I felt vanished as I felt a clear sense of purpose take hold of me. Yes, I was a victim, and nothing would ever change that. Years from now, perhaps even decades if I made it that far, I would have to live with that truth. But V needed me. Even if I was searching for an excuse not to tell her simply because I was afraid to, that didn't change what would happen if I told her the truth, what they had done to me, what I had done to them. It would ruin her. It would ruin us. I wouldn't let that happen. If it required a blatant lie and for me to have to face this shitstorm by myself, so be it. I might be a victim, but I refused to let us be victims. I refused to sink. I'll help you get through this, V. I love you too much not to. I love you too. And just like that, I was free of the burden of hurting her. Neither of us were the epitome of honesty. Exaggerations, lies, even silence when it would cut the deepest. We'd used the full armament against each other over the years in our worst moments, but this was different. This wasn't a lie I was telling out of spite. I was telling it out of love, and we would both be happier for it in the long run. I almost felt high as endorphins released from my brain and flooded through my body. The worst of it was over, and my mind gleefully set out to tackle the broken woman kneeling across from me. Seeing to the needs of others was what I did best. That's good, because you're going to start kicking this tonight. Where are they at now? The beauties? I nodded. They're in my jacket. I stared back at V, ignoring the trepidation in her eyes as I made my meaning clear. With a sigh of resignation, V stood and fumbled with her jacket. It didn't take long before she pulled the familiar-looking capsule out of her pocket. I held out my hand so V could set it in my palm. The capsule was lighter than I thought it would be. I unscrewed the top and counted 11 of them remaining inside. Admittedly, I didn't know shit about Quaaludes, how addictive they were, how hard it would be to kick the habit. I only knew they were medical grade and not street strength, so there was that at least. I was tempted to flush them down the toilet, but I needed to check if weaning her off of them was a better solution than going cold turkey. Until then, I'd keep them out of sight, and someplace where V wouldn't find them. I'm not going to pitch these, because I don't know the first thing about what we're doing here or what's going to happen to you. But I'm going to hide them, V. I know how many are in here, and while I'm not going to be checking your holo as I don't think that's going to be good for us, I am going to be keeping a close eye on our balance. I'll know if you're still buying... What? V had been nodding along with me as I laid things out, but she seemed to be growing more confused with every word. Where was she getting lost? You feeling all right? V asked, suddenly sounding concerned. You sound sick. I should have panicked, but in a stroke of genius, my mind ran with the idea. That was exactly what had happened to me. I'd gotten sick, and like any disease, I needed some time to recover. Thanks for the idea, V. Might be coming down with something. Throat's been a little scratchy most of the day. For good measure, I gestured towards the sweatshirt and added, I had the chills earlier too. V placed her palm on my forehead to check my temperature. A smile pulled at my lips. It was something my abuelo had also done. You do seem a little warm. You want me to get you something?
You've got her wrapped around your finger now. She'll do anything you want, even kick the habit.
Nah, I'm alright. Thanks though. I pocketed the pills and stood up. The apartment wasn't big, so if V was hit by a sudden craving and deciding to search the place, she'd certainly find them, and I didn't want her tearing everything apart in some withdrawal-fueled meltdown. Turn around. V smiled and did as I said, allowing me to proceed unobserved toward the bedroom. I opened the top drawer of our dresser and buried the bottle underneath a pile of socks. It was a terrible hiding place, but it would suffice until tomorrow when I tossed them in my van. The real hiding place. Pleased with myself, I stepped back out. V glanced over her shoulder. Can I turn around now? You can. V turned and grinned. You're a sneak, you know that? Me? Sneak? Don't know what you're talking about, I teased. Her eyes briefly flickered past me, which told me all I needed to know. Even if her heart was in the right place, her brain was already trying to work out where I stashed them. V, I hope you know that I trust you, but I've been around this kind of stuff for a long time. This ain't gonna be easy. You can say that again, V lamented. I got a gig bright and early tomorrow morning. It's nothing to worry about, but I'm already dreading how tired I'm gonna be. My eyes widened. I'd forgotten she'd been gone for almost 2 days. Speaking of which, how was the private security gig? You looked beat when you walked in. V smiled. It was good, and a nice change of pace. I spent most of my time chilling inside of some luxurious high-rise near city center with a few other mercs who'd gotten tagged for the job. That's good. You needed a break, I observed. Yeah, it was pretty boring actually. Who'd have thought that sitting around doing nothing could be so tiring? Still, I'm glad things went well. I caught myself just in the nick of time. Our financial situation wasn't good, but I didn't want to burden her any further by bringing up Eddie's. Besides, if the gig had gone well like she'd said, it would show in our account. And she must have read my mind. Really well, actually. I'll let you see when you check the account. I know we're trying to save up, but I'm thinking we could afford a little celebration soon. If you're up for it, that is. I played along and smiled even as my anxiety spiked at the prospect of going back out into Night City. We'll see. As it turned out, V couldn't wait to celebrate. The evening passed quickly, and neither of us had the energy to do anything. I regretted that, since V was in high spirits and tending to my every need. But I was too tired to argue, and we soon went to bed, though my eyes remained fixed on the ceiling long after V had fallen asleep. We were changing. It was rare to be aware of those moments when two phases of life suddenly crashed together. What was strange was the way we were going about it. We were setting off for the same destination, a healthier future, but we decided to take separate boats and tie them together after. It didn't feel wrong, just strange. I don't recall when I finally dozed off, but I knew I'd been out for a while when I was startled awake by a warm pressure on my waist. My eyes popped open, but I could see nothing in the dark. For a moment, I panicked, thinking I'd woken back up in the warehouse and the entire day had only been a dream. But it quickly passed when I realized the hand suggestively rubbing my waist was soft and familiar. I wanted to groan in protest. My entire body ached, and I had even told her I was sick. She had to be extremely horny to have woken me up like this, though it was flattering to know she didn't care if she caught whatever bug I had. Oh shit. Fuck. How had I not thought of that? I might be infected with any number of STDs or even cyber viruses. Those nasty bits of coding could wreak all kinds of harm upon anyone unfortunate enough to pick one up. V's motions became more urgent, her hand drifting onto my thigh. I was still pretending to be asleep, but I knew that wouldn't work for much longer. She wasn't giving up and wanted to fuck, or rather, she wanted to be fucked. I tried to swallow but gulped instead. V froze. She'd heard me. I couldn't let her touch or go down on me. Even if I could repress the physical pain, not to leave out the emotional turmoil it would cause, I couldn't risk passing something along to her. Tomorrow I would need to take the walk of shame into the local clinic and get tested. But I was getting ahead of myself. V was breathing heavily in my ear, almost panting with desire. I had to do something, even just rebuffing her affections and telling her to go back to sleep. How far could I kick that can, though? I'd have to face intimacy eventually, a day, a month, a year. It didn't matter. Except it did. I'd made a conscious decision not to tell her, and I needed to accept the consequences of that choice, including going through all the motions necessary to keep my secret. A secret. I didn't like the sound of that. I took a deep breath and rolled over to face V. She was already trying to slide a hand between my legs. I was grateful for the darkness so she couldn't see my discomfort. I could do this. I was in control, and this would keep her safe and satisfied. I rested my hand on hers, stopping it. At least she stopped. What is it? V whispered. Just let me take care of you tonight. You're trying so hard. Before she could say anything, I slid a hand under the covers and quickly found the damp patch on her underwear. She was so hot down there, I would have thought she'd been lying awake for hours thinking of me. V's breath hitched in her throat as I traced a finger along the outline of her folds, teasing her over the thin fabric. I kept my motions deliberately slow, trying to get her as worked up as I could so she'd come fast. There was no escaping the disappointment V would experience when she realized I wasn't going down on her, but she wouldn't complain. Even though the angle was awkward with both of us on our sides, I brought my other hand under her shirt and searched for her nipple. V gasped and leaned into my touch when I grazed across the sensitive peak. Her panties were getting wetter, and I knew she wouldn't take much to get off. I reached beneath the waistband of her panties and circled her clit. She was soaked, though I didn't know if I could take all the credit for that or if V had been lying awake for longer than I knew. There was no resistance as I slipped a pair of fingers inside of her. V moaned and spread her legs wider as I slowly probed deeper.
It was her fault.
Confusion spread across my face as I began fucking her. Where had that come from? Why the hell would it have been her fault? Her breath rushed across my face in ragged gasps, already tainted with a hint of morning breath I'd likely be waking to later. As she rocked her hips to meet my thrusts, I circled my thumb over her clit, which earned me a whimper. V suddenly clutched my shoulder with a shaky hand. Even in the dark, I could imagine how she must have looked, eyes lidded, mouth thrown open as I continued fucking her. It didn't take long before she seized and tightened her grip on me. I kept the same steady pace as she came and threw her head back, unknowingly lashing my face with her hair.
Oh, fuck.
Better? I asked, giving a gentle tap on her, still quivering thigh. Much. The bedroom was filled with V's scent as she caught her breath and rustled closer, again resting a hand on my hip. Can I take care of you? Please? I tried to ignore the prickling in my eyes. I had been clear that I wanted to take care of her. Couldn't she just do what I asked and let it be? I'm not sure that's a good idea. I'm not feeling all that great. Shit, I'm sorry. You should have said something. It's all right, I lied. I wanted to. V reached out and pulled me closer. She was radiating heat, and I could feel the beat of her heart against my skin. It should have been comforting. I was supposed to feel safe in her arms. So why didn't I? Maybe tomorrow? V asked. I squinted my eyes shut. Maybe.